Teruvan Saranai. This is the English sermon of Dharma Abai. We're getting back together again this week to discuss to preach and understand and discuss the Lord Buddha's Dhamma. And we are streaming live via YouTube only this week, as a reminder to those who may be looking to join us via the other channels. As usual, if you have any questions, then please feel free to post them on the YouTube chat session or chat window, as well as our DOBB English Dhamma group on Skype, and I'll be able to pick them up from either of those places. Apologies for the delay today. However, this was spent discussing the Dhamma with some of the visitors we had from Denmark, which was quite an interesting experience in itself. But anyway, let us get started. And as usual, before we get started, let us take a moment to reflect on the fact that the reason we have this Dhamma today is because the great Lord Buddha, the most perfect human being, in his infinite compassion, determined to achieve enlightenment and then preach the Dhamma to all beings, all humanity, all devas, all brahmas, and anyone who may be fortunate enough to receive the Dhamma. And it is because of that determination, because of that compassion, we have the Dhamma today. So let us take a moment to reflect on those infinite qualities of the Lord Buddha and pay our mark of respect to him. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Let us also take a moment to reflect on all those beings who we may have come past in samsara, to everyone who may have helped us, supported us, be where we are today, be human beings, be here today, right now, at this moment in time, be fortunate and blessed enough to listen to the Dhamma, to learn from the Dhamma, to learn the Dhamma, and to achieve Nibbana, at least find happiness in life, happiness that is different to the kind of happiness we've always been looking for in life, because that has always been a rat race, and a never-ending rat race. There are countless beings who on our journey in samsara we have been ungrateful to, who we have done disservice to, who we have been unkind to. And today, as people, as devas, as brahmas who are fortunate enough to receive the Dhamma, it is our duty and responsibility to remind ourselves that all of those beings who we may have been unkind to are perhaps in places where they are unable to receive the Dhamma for various reasons. So let us extend an invitation out to them. Let us hope that the merits that we accrue throughout the process of listening to this Dhamma are instilled on those beings. And for anyone that is able to join us, may they join us. May they be able to listen to the Dhamma, to understand the Dhamma, and may the Dhamma help them attain the noble attainments of Sotapanna, Sakurdagami, Anagami and Arahant. So as I make this invitation, please join me in extending that invitation out to any of the devas who may have been assistance to you, any past relations who may have been of assistance to you, and any of those friends or family who may no longer be with us today, may no longer be alive today, but those beings who may be looking for that kind of salvation. And let us invite them. May they listen to the Dhamma, may they understand the Dhamma, and may they find the ultimate happiness of Nibbana. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Sadhamang Munirajasansa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Badanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Badanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Badanta. Let us also take a brief moment to accept and appreciate the fact that on our journey in samsara, it has not always been the case that we have had the fortune to associate with noble people. Oftentimes we will have come across ignoble people, immoral people, and they may have influenced us. They may have influenced us to their way of thinking. And on these occasions, with the view that we are better than everyone else, oftentimes we will have insulted Aryas, noble people. We will have caused them harm, hardship. And today, when we try to understand the Dhamma and we follow and practice that path, it becomes virtually impossible to do that because of those Arya Upavadas or those insults that we would have committed. So, before we commence this program today, let us take a moment to reflect on that fact and seek forgiveness from all those Aryas, from all those noble people, which includes the Samma Sambuddhas, the Pacceka Buddhas, the Arahants, and any beings who may have attained the path or fruit of Anagami, Sakurdagami, and Sotapanna, as well as any Aryans who are practicing the path, and quite literally any being whatsoever. Let us seek their forgiveness for any harm or hardship we may have caused them, and reflect on the fact that this would have happened because of our own delusion, our own ignorance. So let us seek forgiveness before we get started. Okay. As a reminder again, if you have any questions, then you're welcome to post them on Skype or our YouTube chat window if you're connected via YouTube. I had a few questions from some of our listeners over the phone, connected to us via some of our close friends and relatives, and I thought it's important that perhaps I mention them or raise those questions and perhaps try and answer them on this medium as well, because it may be questions that are lingering on your own minds. So one of those questions was, when we commence these programs, we invite the Devas and Brahmas, and the question was, well, do they understand English? Now, as we know, in the time of the Lord Buddha, there were Devas and Brahmas who attended his sermons, and in fact the Tripitaka holds evidence of the fact that they visited him and asked him questions themselves. and there are discourses given to Devas exclusively. So over time, and as we know today, the Buddha used the language called Shuddha Magadi. The Dhamma would have been preached in various languages as it is today, not by the Buddha, I mean since then. So as we know, all over the world the Dhamma is being preached in English, in German, in French, in Spanish, in Sinhala, in Pali, and so on. So there is then the question, well, do the Devas that are invited, and the Brahmas and any other beings that are invisible to our physical eyes, do they understand the language that we speak? Well, the case is that it's not necessarily the words that we speak that they understand. It's actually the feeling that goes with it. It's the sentiments. So when we preach the Dhamma, clearly the process involves Chitta Sankara, Vachi Sankara, and Kaya Sankara. That is formations. By formations I mean forming the thoughts that are involved in the production of thoughts, and thoughts that are involved in the production of speech, and thoughts that are involved, or all the activities that are involved in the production of physical movement of the body. So quite simply put, I've got to think what I speak. I've got to put those words together in my mind before I spit them out as words using my vocal cords and my mouth and so on. So when I speak, I'm doing all three of them. When I do Chitta Sankara, or the formations by thought, then that involves a process that happens within the mind, and in that process you emit a certain kind of energy. And also when you produce Vachi Sankara, remember, Vachi Sankara is not the actual speaking of the words, it's the putting together of those words into meaningful ideas in your mind. It's like when we plan for something in our mind, and or for example, if you're giving a speech, then perhaps you're putting those words together in your mind before you speak them out. So it's that process that happens within the mind, but that is Vachi Sankara, verbal formations, and in that process you generate this energy which is released into the universe, into space, and it's that energy through which it's those waves of energy through which these beings that we are not able to see with our eyes accept and understand and receive those messages. So that is how those beings would understand what it is that we talk. So it's not the actual words that they listen to. It's not the sound that we make, but rather it's the idea, it's the sentiment that comes along with it. So hopefully that makes sense. And therefore it doesn't matter what language we use to give the discourse, as long as the meaning is clear, then that's all that matters. We also had a different kind of question today when we had I know actually it was an email that came through, and on that email there was I believe it was a lady who is resident in Canada. She's a mid-aged woman, and she says she's been listening to our sermons for some time now, and she has, all she wants to do is really don robes and become a nun, and yet she says to find the freedom to do that from her from home has been an incredibly difficult situation, incredibly difficult challenge, because of all the ties that you have at home. And she's explained of family, husband, children, parents, and so on. She has elderly parents, aged 80 and 87, I think, if I remember correctly. So the essence of the content was that when she reflects, or when she thinks about all of these challenges that she has, which gets in the way of trying to achieve her goal, that is to become a nun, then it really stresses her out and it frustrates her, because she says that she finds no happiness in a worldly existence. No material pleasures don't bring her happiness, and therefore she's looking for recluse and to remove herself from the world. Interestingly, the people that we had, the visitors we had from Denmark today, didn't necessarily say that they wanted to become monks and nuns, but what they did say was living a worldly life as lay people is extremely challenging. And they said with kids and family and work, the pressures are sometimes unbearable, and sometimes it stresses you out. So how do we deal with this? So I think this goes back to something we discussed some time ago, and that is about the essence of setting expectation on the world. I can't stress it enough that if we reflect on all the times that we feel that the world is stressing me out and the world is frustrating me, we've got to take a moment to take a pause and reflect on why is that the case. Because let's take a really simple example, and you'll have faced this day in, day out. Work. People do a job for a living, right? If your boss, you feel, is mounting an unbearable amount of pressure on you, well, clearly that's making you unhappy, that's stressing you out. But you have to remember the fact that he's working for somebody else. Or even if he's the big boss of the company, there are probably shareholders who own the company, and then there's obviously competition in the marketplace, and therefore perhaps he or she has little choice than to expect a lot from you. So when your immediate boss comes and asks you to do X, Y, and Z, and you can only deal with X, and these other two things, Y and Z, are going to overload you, you're going to be unhappy about them, you're going to start feeling stressed, but his boss is going to feel quite good about that, because he's feeling, well, more people are getting the work done, people are getting lots of work done. So while one person likes the fact that you're being asked to do lots of work, well, clearly you don't like the fact. You want to just deal with what you can, and the other bits of work you're thinking, well, that is just too much, I can't handle it. And what really happens is, because we always talk about expectation and setting and disappointing expectations, if you think for a moment about why is it that expectations in the workplace cause me stress, well, quite frankly, it's not actually your boss expecting you to do things that causes you stress. It's your expectation of trying to satisfy the boss's expectation that causes you stress, not the other way around. Expectation is always what causes frustration, but it's always your expectation. Because if your boss came and asked you to do 100 different things, and you went, I'm not advising that any of you do this, and you replied, well, I can only deal with 10, you can sod off, I'm not going to do the other 90, you'll probably not last there for very long if you use those words. But what you do when you accept the 100 different things is you're replying, and you're actually setting expectations on yourself, and now you're setting yourself the challenge of meeting those expectations. So whether you set expectations on yourself or you set expectations on somebody else, expectation leads to disappointment. That is what we need to understand. Now, when you live a lay life, setting expectations is part and parcel of it. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to set expectations on anybody and I'll be happy. Well, the problem is, that is the fundamental problem of lay life. This is why, myself and lots of other people are removing ourselves from lay life and trying to live a different kind of life, where we reduce the number of expectations we have to set on people. When you have a family, when you have parents to look after, relations, brothers, sisters and kids, then you have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you have to put a shelter over their heads, you have to send them to school, you have to take them out for a meal, you have to make them happy, get them to see their friends, invite people over, you have to pay your bills, you have to pay the mortgage, you have to repair your home, you have to repair your car, take it for a service. All of those things you have to do, because why? Because the world is all conditioned. Because we live in a world that is conditioned, entirely conditioned, and these conditions don't last forever, and these conditions are always in a state of flux, always fluctuating. Well, guess what? You have to constantly do things to keep things in line, to keep your ducks in a row. You always have to. It's always a struggle. Because what do little ducks do? They always jump out the line, and so the mother duck always has to put them back in line. So likewise, to keep our ducks in a row, you have to work hard for that. This is why when you leave that kind of lifestyle, and you'll have often heard the word contentment is bliss. Well, this is how contentment brings you bliss. Because if you can be content with how the world works outside, then therein lies bliss. Because you've now accepted that the world is how it is, and you adjust yourself. You become flexible, and you don't expect other people to become flexible. So when you live a monastic life like I do and like other people do, as monks and nuns, we teach ourselves and we learn to be simple, we learn to be very modest, and we not only learn that expectation leads to frustration, which is something that most people find difficult to get their heads around, but we not only learn that, but also have very little expectations on the world. So for example, if I find that one morning my alms bowl has a crack in it, then until someone comes along and offers me a new alms bowl, I'll just find some way to patch it up. Or I might just hold a finger where there's a leak and then have my meal that way. This is about trying to be content with what we've got. The last thing I want to do is go asking people for things, because I realize that the world and all our benefactors, the people who come and look after us, the people who bring alms for us, they all have a million other and infinite other obligations and duties to fulfill. So they shouldn't have to fulfill my needs and requirements as well on top of that. Therefore I try and live and lead a very simple life, and this is the opportunity you get as a monk and as a nun, because the world doesn't set expectations on us other than, can you please teach us some Dhamma. What else does the world expect from me? They don't expect anything else from me. This is why, and that's what I'm here to do as well, to learn the Dhamma, to practice the Dhamma. And if that's all the world expects from me, then I have 100% time to do just what I want, and that's why I'm happy. So this is what I explained to the visitors we had today, because the complaint was that life is quite stressful, the workplace is stressful, having kids and having a family is stressful, people don't do what I ask them to do. Well, clearly they don't. You'd be a miracle if they did, because even in all thoughts, every thought that every person has is conditioned, is it not? it's the result of lots of different conditions. Remember we discussed random numbers a long time ago? Well, just the same. Thoughts are all conditioned. And every person, every mind has an infinite number of conditions that give the result of a particular thought. So how are you going to change all those conditions to get you the result that you want? That is just not going to happen. So that is what we need to realize. And you'll also remember that last week we discussed how we have these models, and we set these models on, we have these models in our mind, and these models we try to go out into the world and try and fulfill. We try to go out into the world and find objects and people and things that fit our models, and how when that doesn't happen, we are then again frustrated. Models is just another word for expectation. Buddhism, if you look at Buddhist philosophy, the essence of that is really simple. You can explain it in a million different ways. In fact, the Buddha has given us 84,000 different types of Dhamma. So if you can't understand it one way, then let's discuss it another way. If that doesn't work, let's discuss it in another way. You can do 84,000 different ways, but it's all talking about the same thing. The world is anicca, it's not to our liking. The world is therefore dukkha if you go and attach yourself to it. So, attachment brings you suffering and frustration and agony and anxiety and stress, and therefore it is a useless and essenceless and meaningless thing to do, to keep doing that when you know that is all that's happening. So that is what we need to reflect on day in, day out. And to the person that sent the email, what I would say is, accept that the world is, that is the nature of the world. That is what we have come into. No one forced us into this world. We came into this world as a result of our own deeds, as a result of our own actions, and as a result of our own thoughts, didn't we? So we have to be humble enough, and we have to be tolerant of the things that come our way. The vicissitudes of life is such that they are results of the things that we've done in the past. And therefore we have to learn to be content with what comes our way, whether it's pain or comfort, whether it's slander or praise, whether it's loss or gain. It doesn't matter. These are the results of things that we've done in the past, and therefore we have to learn to accept them. But it's not easy to do that, because often when good things come our way, people feel happy, no problem with that. But when the world doesn't work the way we want, then we get really frustrated and disappointed. This is why we need the insurance. We need an insurance policy, and the insurance policy is what the Lord Buddha has given us. Because the Lord Buddha didn't come into the world to teach us how to look after our physical self. He didn't come into the world and say, make sure you brush your teeth twice a day. He didn't come into the world and say, make sure you go and have a shower every day. Because he didn't, that's not what he came into the world for. Everyone teaches us, there's plenty of books, and there are plenty of doctors and teachers who would teach us to look after our physical body. But the insurance policy that he gave us was for our minds, because he realized that it's the mind that keeps going from one birth to the other. It's the mind that takes us on that journey, and it's the raga, dvesha, moha in the mind, the qualities of the mind, the attributes of desire, aversion and delusion that does that to us. So therefore he gives us this discipline, this philosophy of anicca, dukkha, anatta. If we understand, then that helps us eradicate those roots. And once the roots are eradicated, then trees don't grow without a root. And the tree of jati, or the tree of birth, the tree of paticca samuppada, dependent origination, does not take place when the root of ignorance or avidya does not exist. And this is why the practice or the philosophy of Buddhism is all about eradicating avidya and tanha, ignorance and attachment. Because if we are able to do that, then that's all we need to do. Forget about all the 84,000 different ways of doing it, because just having said that, I'm thinking people are probably now stressing themselves out. When am I ever going to learn all the 84,000 things? Now that's not a book somewhere you can pick up and read all of those 84,000. Well, actually it is a book. It is called the Tripitaka, And if you count all the discourses, including the sutras, the book of Vinaya or discipline, the book of discourses or the Sutra Pitaka, and the book of Abhidhamma, if you count all the teachings there, then they amount to 84,000. But this is not a piece of advice to you to go and read all of that. That's not what you need. To become a Sotapanna is all you need. Once you've done that, then the rest is all sorted. The path is clear from that point forward. Nobody can stop you. No one in this entire universe can come and stop you. Not even a Buddha can come and stop you after you become a Sotapanna. You attaining Nibbana is absolutely going to happen. No one can stop you. And that is because you have understood that the world is not to my liking. It's just cause and effect. For all this time in samsara, I've just been trying to line up all the causes to get the happiness that I wanted. And I've thought to myself, because this is what people that we've associated have always put into our heads. Change the world. Sort him out. Sort her out. Get him or her to do what you want them to do, and then that's going to make you happy. There are books written that ask you to do that. TV programs, this is how the world wants you to work. But that has never worked. This is why every day you have to keep doing that. It's like, imagine you've got a cone, and it's like a funnel. There's a ball that's in this funnel. You keep it on top of the funnel, and what happens to the ball? It rolls down and comes out the other end, right? So what do we always do? We just pick it up and put it back up there. And the moment you let go, it rolls back down again. You pick it up and put it back up. Oh no, this is what makes me happy. For as long as the ball's up on top of the funnel, that makes me really happy. So I pick it up and put it back up there. For as long as I can hold it, it's going to be there. But the moment I let go, it rolls down and comes out the other end. Such is life. Such is everything that is conditioned. So for as long as we determine and keep at it, that is to keep doing this process of putting that ball back up there, not realizing that it's a ball and there's gravity in play and it's a cone, anicca dukkha anatta, the ball's going to keep rolling down. And for as long as you're going to keep doing that, you're just going to exhaust yourself. And you'll keep doing that from the moment you're born to the day you die. This is why the Buddha comes and says, do you not realize that what you're doing is completely stupid? It's futile, it's essenceless, it's meaningless. You're trying to put a ball that's round into a funnel that is shaped like a cone, and then there's gravity. When these three conditions come into play, how on earth are you going to stop that ball the moment you let go? That's just not going to happen. So this is what we have to try and realize. Trying to live a successful lay life is the same. Think for a moment about all the people that you have duties and responsibilities to. All the things that you have duties and responsibilities to. In fact, just yesterday, I met with this guy who came over, a gentleman who came over. He had been a monk for about the first 20 years of his life. Or, well, since he was a young boy, he had become a monk, been a monk till the age of 22. And then he went on to study at university. He studied science, bioscience, and today he's a doctor. So after he had graduated from university, he tells me that the chief incumbent monk in the temple that he was resident in advised him, well, being a doctor is so much better than being a monk, so why don't you just go and live, be a successful doctor. And when I heard that, I was I was like, he said what? Well, anyway, so today, yesterday he came to me. He says he's got problems with drink. Ever since he left the temple. Yes, he has been practicing as a doctor, but even in the hospitals that he went to, he got into drinking, and then he was as a form of punishment. He was sent to work in one of the rural hospitals, and that's where he's been ever since, with very little facilities, and he's the only doctor in that hospital. And today he comes and, yesterday he came and told me, how do I get out of this? I mean, it's such a shame. And to top all of that, he had a splitting headache as well. So I asked him, you're a doctor, you understand how the body works, now stop that headache. Let's see you try and stop that headache right now. Apparently he'd gone out and gotten himself some drugs, but even then he said, I still got this splitting headache. Well, that's what, and this is what I explained to him. No matter whether you're a king or an emperor or a hospital or a doctor, when the time comes for you to be ill, you're going to be ill. When the time comes for you to grow old, you're going to grow old, and that happens every moment. And when the time comes for you to die, you're going to die. No one's going to be able to stop that. And that is the calamity, that is the problem with having been born. So while you are a doctor right now, you treat people to cure illnesses that happens to their body and the brain, not necessarily the mind. Well, why don't you come back and be a proper doctor? A doctor that treats the root causes, that treats the problem at the root, and that is attachment and ignorance. Because if you treat those, then you become the greatest doctor that anyone's ever seen. I said, you're a doctor, well, so am I. I'm in robes, you're in a shirt and trousers, but guess who treats people in a way that they never get ill again? Can you do that? I said, I can. So this is what we've got to realize. To try and be successful in this world is just a complete waste of time. When one guy wants one thing, somebody else wants something else. And two people will always want two different things, and they'll always be pulling in opposite directions. It's like a match. A cricket match, two teams. But in life, there's more than two teams playing the game. There are 10 different teams, 100 different teams playing the game, and they all want to win the cup. And we're all pulling in our direction. And then when that happens, someone's going to be sad, someone's going to be frustrated, someone's going to be disappointed, someone's going to lose their mind, because they feel, I have to win this, because my life depends on this, my family expects me to do this. How can you ever be successful? How can you ever be content in a world like that? So when you let go of all that and you come and live a very simple and modest life like we do, well, then we're not trying to make anyone happy. We're not trying to satisfy anybody. Duties and responsibilities are nothing other than helping people understanding the Dhamma, which is exactly what I want to do for myself. So we are all pulling in the same direction. Well, guess who's going to be a winner? I'm pulling in the same direction that everyone else wants me to pull in. But in lay life, I was pulling in one direction, everyone else is pulling in the opposite direction, in different directions. And then it's a case of winners and losers. Whereas once you've done robes and you let go of all of that and you just want to lead a simple life, then everyone's a winner. So do you want to play a game where everyone's going to be a loser or everyone's going to be a winner? The choice should be simple. But so, for as long as we've known the people that we've associated with, the immoral people that we've associated with, I say immoral, that's all they've known, that's the problem. Because that's all they've been taught, that's all their parents have taught them, their grandparents and parents before that. All we've been taught is to be successful in this world. I've said in the past many times, when I was a layperson, I did everything by the book to be successful. I planned my day, I planned my week, I planned my month, I planned my year. At the start of every year, I'd have 8 different categories in which I'd plan my life. I'd plan on family. How can I have a successful family life? How can I have a successful education? How can I have more money in my bank? How can I start myself a little fortune, like a business, an investment? How can I be successful in having a good health? all these different categories of how I could be successful. And then for each category I went out and did research on the internet. I bought myself books, and I've showed people who've come around. Do you remember? How to have a successful married life, how to make money, how to invest, and how to be successful, how to plan your day successfully. And believe me, doing all of these things, it worked. It worked to the extent that for as long as I kept pedaling, the cycle was moving. But only for as long as I kept pedaling. But the problem is, as I keep pedaling down this road, everyone wants me to go in different directions. Whereas my wife wants me to go west, my mother wants me to go east, my boss wants me to go south, and my neighbor wants me to go north. They all want me to pedal, and they all want me to go places and do things for them. So expectation. I lived in a world full of expectations, and to satisfy their expectations, I spent my life. Isn't that what we did? Spending our lives to satisfy other people. Why do we go to school? So we can learn. To do what? To get a job. To do what? To earn money. Why? Because that's how the world works. People don't give me a free meal. People don't give me free clothing, free house. You don't get those things for free. So people expect me to work hard. People expect me to learn hard, to study hard, to be successful. That's not a system that I designed. It's not a system that I came into the world and said, oh, guess what? I'm alive. Now I'm going to live life by my rules. And guess what? The world turned around and said to me, well, you've got another thing coming, if that's what you think you're going to be doing. We've got the system, and you're going to play by the system. We've set the rules of the game, and you're going to play by the rules of the game. I asked the question, hang on, it's my life. Well, tough. It's our world. And then I had no choice. I was born. I was alive, so I had to feed myself. No one was going to feed me. I had to educate myself. I had to clothe myself. I had to put a roof over my head. And then the world expected me to have kids, to get married, to buy a house, to buy a car, to go places, to go work for other people, to fulfill responsibilities. So all I've done is spent a life trying to make other people happy and play a game that I didn't enter myself into. I played a game that I didn't even know I was playing the game. When I was at the age of 2 and 3, I didn't know I was playing a game, but guess what? I was being trained to play the game. And then by the age of 5 and 6, I slowly started to learn the world. These are my parents, these are my, here are my relations. They seem to be visiting me every now and then, we seem to be visiting them. And whenever we do that, we seem to be taking them stuff, and they seem to be bringing us stuff. So that must be something that people do when they visit each other, right? So, okay, so responsibilities, duties. And then I see my dad leaving home to go to work. Why does he do that? Why does he not just spend the day with me? I mean, I'm his son after all. Who can be more important to him than me? And then I ask the question, and he says, well, no, I've got to go and do a job. That's what puts a roof over our head. I was like, who invented that game? Who's stupid enough to invent a game like that? Where to be happy, you've got to go out and do the things that don't make you happy. So you spend 8 hours a day doing a job, earning money, and then come back, and by the time you're back home, I mean, I know lots of people like this. By the time you're back home, your kids are asleep, your wife's asleep. So now tell me, when are you going to be happy? This is the game that we've been playing for all this time. Playing a game that we didn't set the rules for. The world set those rules for us. But the problem is, as I said before, and in response to this lady's email, yes, we didn't invent the rules of the game, but it's ourselves that brought us into this game. And that's where the problem is. To try and now change the rules of the game is going to be futile, unsuccessful. We can't do that, because that's how the world works, that's how people work. But what we can do is stop playing the game. We can call ourselves out. We can say, that's enough, I'm tired, I want to take a break, I want to stop playing this game, call me out. That we can do. But the time we can do that is when we get the Lord Buddha's Dhamma. Before this, we've been playing, again, the Super Mario comes to mind. When the game Super Mario starts, Super Mario is just a normal Super Mario. He's not that super. is just a normal Mario. He keeps running and then he eats these mushrooms. He collects coins and eats mushrooms. When he eats a mushroom, he becomes super. He eats another mushroom, he becomes really super. So that's like becoming a Deva and becoming a Brahma. But despite all of that, you know, at the start of the game you have a Mario that's a human Mario. Then he eats a mushroom and he becomes a Deva Mario. Then he eats another mushroom and he becomes a Brahma Mario. But despite all of that, just one little owl comes along, and the owl attacks Mario, and guess where he goes? Doesn't go up. He never does go up. He goes down. Goes down. And that's what happens to all of us. We are playing by someone's game. We play by their rules that have been designed to make other people successful, not me. This is why I work really, really hard, and at the end of my lifetime, well, I don't take any of that money with me. I don't take a single penny with me. It goes to someone else. Someone else who I only met for this lifetime. Think about your brother, you know, your sons, your daughters, your relations, people that you're planning on leaving your estate to. Are you going to meet them again? You don't even know who your parents or brothers or sisters or children were in your last birth. But guess what you did in your last birth? Work really hard for them as well. And then again, this birth you're working really hard for them as well. Well, what's the Mario doing? He's running all that way to what? To save the queen, to save the princess, and to take her back into the castle. Isn't our life just a game? Well, Mario has no choice. He's now in the game. He has to play by the rules of the game. You know, the world comes and rewards him with coins. Those gold coins, if he can find them. And that's what we do as well. We go earn ourselves a bit of money, and then we build a house, we buy a car, we buy some land, and that makes us feel really happy because it feels like we've achieved something. Whether you're a human Mario, whether you're a Deva Mario, whether you're a Brahma Mario. You know, there'll be Devas and Brahmas listening to this. Well then, listen. Doesn't matter where you are right now. When the day comes when your credit runs out, you're going to go back into where you came from. And that's the health. And when you go back into the health, you're going to suffer infinitely. For a very long time. I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous program. Recently I did some research on how long life was with Dharanadasa Hamduru the other day. We did some math and we worked out what lifespan is in the hell that has the least amount of suffering. It's called Sanjivake. So there's Sanjivake, Sangate, Kalasutre, Raurave, Maharaurave, Avitya. So in these hells, so Tapane, Mahatapane and Avitya. So these are the 8 hells. And in the hell that has the least amount of suffering, that is Sanjivake. This research that we did, we found out that lifespan there is 500 eons. 500 eons. Oh sorry, 500 years. 500 years not in human years, but 500 years in lifetime in Sanjivake, in that place. And then we wanted to work out, well, what does 500 years in the Sanjivake compare to lifetime on earth in the human realm. So we thought, well, let's put 500 years to a side. Let's just work out what one day is, because 500, the number that came out for 500 was, we just couldn't get our heads around it. I didn't even know how to read that number out. I can only read up to 1 million and 1 billion, and then after that I don't even know what those numbers are called. And so then we worked out, well, what is 1 second? We went down to that level. What is 1 second in Sanjivake in human years? And having worked that number out, sent a shiver down my spine. 1 second in Sanjivake is 105 years on the human planet. 105 years. We've not been alive for that long. So in the time that we've been alive, not even a second has passed in the Sanjivake hell. And this is the hell where they torture you with fire. They torture you by cutting you up into pieces. They torture you by shoving up red hot iron bars through your backside and through your mouth until people standing outside or the being standing outside can see those iron rods passing inside your body because they are red hot. This is the Sanjivaka that we are talking about. So what's the point of being a Deva and a Brahma or a human being if that's where you're going to end up? if you do the things that the world has been teaching you to do. Which is to go and be the best you can be by trying to earn the most amount of money. Doesn't matter what you do to someone else by doing that. Steal, rob, kill, murder, slander, abuse. It doesn't matter, just earn whatever you need to earn to be happy. Well, this is what awaits us then. And all this because we've been associating with people that have been always praising a worldly life. And that's why we always say, well, enough is enough. I'm not willing to go through that process again. So again, in what I'd like to say to the lady that sent that email is, we brought ourselves into this world. We don't like the rules of the game. We don't like to play the game, but we brought ourselves into this game. And while we are alive, while we are in the game, we have to play. And it doesn't matter whether we like it or not, we have to play by the rules of the book. So the only thing we can do though then is, we have the opportunity to redeem ourselves, to remove ourselves from this world. And we only have this when we have the Buddha Dhamma. It's like if you've played Monopoly, you have free parking in Monopoly. And when you are in free parking, you don't have to pay tax to anybody. You don't have to pay rent on any hotels or any houses. You just stay there until your next turn comes along. So think of free parking as where you have the Buddha Dhamma. But you don't always land on free parking on your way around this board. Countless times you've gone round the board and not landed on free parking. Sometimes you get a community chest or a chance card that says, take a walk to free parking. And when that happens, boy, you've got to be happy. So you go to free parking just like we're doing right now, and we learn the Buddha Dhamma, we practice that, we try and find a way to remove ourselves from this game. But remember, 2 weeks back we discussed what is it that brought us into this game. It was our attachment to Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. So who's to blame other than ourselves? You saw those Rupa, those forms out there and thought, wow, beautiful, I'd like to see more of them. You heard those sounds and thought, wow, I'd like to hear more of those sounds. That's a beautiful music. I wish I could listen to more of those sounds. The moment of your death, you're thinking, oh, if I could just watch a little bit more of that. If I could see my other child as well, I can see all 10 of them here. Where's the other one? Why? You still want to see more. You want to hear more. You want to taste more. You want to touch and feel more. You want to think more. And as long as you want to do more of these things, all you're doing is creating the energy to bring you back into samsara. And the reason you're doing that is because you're thinking, your view is that these things are so valuable, so precious. And therefore you dedicate your life to going and acquiring and accumulating all of these things. You just keep filling your bags full of Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. You go hunting for them. Hunter-gatherer. Who said there are no more hunter-gatherers in this world? Well, guess what we do? We hunt and we gather. What? Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. And we fill our bags up with these things. And then we go back home and recall all of these things and relive those experiences. Thinking, oh, I wish I had another second to talk to her. Or how I wish I could smell her again. How I wish I could talk to her again. Or taste that lovely food again. Not realizing that all of that is based on ignorance. All of that brings rise to, all of that ignites desire within us, aversion, and all based on delusion. But if we realize at some point that none of these things have any intrinsic value in them, because all of those things are conditioned. When the conditions change, then the effect changes. But if I go and attach myself to that, what happens then? Then you end up suffering. And it's not realizing that you fill your bags up. It's not realizing that you fill your packs up and you go hunting for them. If you realize it's all just conditioned. Yesterday when I was giving this sermon, there was an example that I used. That was where a man goes out to buy a car. He buys a car, he brings it home, and he thinks this car is valuable. In fact, before he bought the car, he went round for a test drive, like we've done when we bought cars. Not now, but as a layperson I did. And then how did we value this car? You go to the salesman and you ask the salesman, how much is this car? He gives you a price. You don't pay them the price that he's asked you just like that. You go around in the car, you test it out a bit, and then you assess what value you think it is. Right? That's how we do. Anything is the same. You buy a house. There's the person that's selling the house. They say it's so much. You don't just walk up and say, oh, here's a check for that amount, I'll just take the house. No, you don't do that. You walk into the house, you go for a viewing, you go for a second viewing, a third viewing, you measure up the rooms, you check all the taps, you check the heating, you check the cooling, right? You check if the doors open and close correctly. You check all of these things. Why? Because you're assessing the house and how much value you can give it to yourself. So this is the same thing you do when you go buy a car. And when you go take it round for a drive, you're checking the brakes, you're checking the accelerator, you're checking the clutch, you're checking and making sure the gears work okay, you're checking the wipers work okay, the indicators, the radio works, right, the gas tank works, you're checking all of this. And if all of those things work, then you come to a conclusion. This car is to my liking. when I depress the accelerator, the car accelerates. Oh great, that's to my liking then. the car speeds up. When I press on the brake pedal, then the car comes to a stop. Oh, that's to my liking. Great. When I turn the lever, then the indicators start working. Oh, that's to my liking as well. But when you when you give it value in that way, you assess the value for yourself, and then you go to the person selling you the car and you give him some money, and this is what you valued the car, and you then bring it home. But you don't realize that all you're seeing right now is just cause and effect. The accelerator didn't work. The accelerator worked not because you wanted it to work. It's because the mechanics for it to worked at that moment in time. There are plenty of times when you buy the car at that moment in time, when you go for the test drive, works a charm. You bring it home. I mean, I remember when I was a layperson, I went out with a friend to buy a car for him. He went for a test drive, worked a charm, brand new car, brings it home, and then a light flashes on on the panel, and it says there's a fault with the engine. All is a brand new car, brings it home, and now there's a problem with the engine. So, and as soon as he observes that, it's as if his heart has sunk. He's thinking, I've paid all this money, got myself a brand new car, and now it's showing that it's got problems with it. Right? So going back to the original example, you buy this car, let's say you bought a second-hand car, you bring it home, you've given it value, but over time what's going to happen? Your ignition's not going to work the first time you crank it. It's going to take a couple of shots. You're going to, before where you just had to touch on the clutch to change your gear, now you've got to literally stand on the damn thing. Right? Your brakes don't work like they used to. Your accelerator doesn't work like it used to. Your bonnet doesn't open and close smoothly like it used to. The doors make an awful noise when it opens, right? All of these things because you're not maintaining the thing. Well, if you want it to be the way just like you bought it, you're going to have to do a lot. You're going to have to invest a lot of time and money in maintaining your car. But regardless of how much maintenance you do, there's going to be the day when it just becomes a load of metal, and it's going to then have to go to its graveyard. Right? That day is going to come. But until such time, you keep maintaining this thing. And what also happens is, the older the car, the costlier it is to maintain it, is it not? Why? Because more and more parts stop working. It's just the same like our bodies. A young kid, if he's ill, if he has a fall, most of the time you could just ask him to take some bed rest. Fractured bones heal themselves. Young kids. But when you grow older, that's not the case. You've got to go and treat it. You've got to do an operation. You've got to, put sutures and tie the two things up and put bits of metal inside the body. Sometimes you've got to replace parts of the body. Hip replacement surgeries. Have you heard of these things? This is the problem. Things as they grow old, you can't replace them. You can't fix them, so you have to replace them. And the same applies for the car. But what's going to happen is, as parts of the car stop working, this guy's now going to think, well, it used to work the way I liked it, it's now not working the way I like it to. And so the value starts diminishing. If he bought the car for £2,000, over time it's going to start reducing in value. It's going to drop down to 1,500 one day. It's going to drop to £1,000 one day. It's going to drop to £500 one day. Now I speak from my personal experience. When I bought my car as a layperson, that was back in 2012. It was valued at £3,500. When I left the country, I left it with my parents to sell the car because I didn't have the time to do all of that. And the last time they came and they visited me, they said, "We've got some bad news for you." I said, "What is it?" "Well, we sold the car." "That's good news." "How much did you?" But it's the price we sold it for. "How much was that?" £50. I bought it for £3,500, and they sold it for 50. I said, "Well, that doesn't hurt me so much right now, because I realize that's what's going to happen. It's an old car, it's an old body, that's what's going to happen. But and I don't give it so much value like I used to. If it was me back then, without an understanding of the Dhamma, that would have completely destroyed me. Good heavens, I put in so much money into that car, and every year I used to take it for a service, and still they could only sell it for £50. Right? So what happens then is the value that we give to that object reduces. Why? Because the value that we give it, not people outside, the value that I give to that object reduces when I begin to understand that it doesn't work to my liking. But one fine day, along comes a man who collects metal. He collects metal because he sells metal to people who buy metal, places who buy, shops that buy metal, and then he gets his money that way. So he comes along and now he's looking at the car. He's not wanting a car that drives smoothly. No, he just wants the metal. He just wants to take it to a scrapyard. So to him, this is really valuable. Why? It's just a load of metal. Whereas to me, I'm not interested in metal. I want a car that drives. So I then tell him, well, it's just parked at the back. When it was a brand new car, it was parked right at the front, where everyone could see it, where all my neighbors could see it. It was polished every day. It was taken for a service. Right now it's parked at the back, where the dog goes and does its job to the wheels of the car, and I don't care one bit right now, because it's an old car and it doesn't work to my liking. So you see how the value that I've given it has diminished, because it doesn't work the way I want it to. But this man that has come to take it to the scrapyard sees a lot of value in that. So he then pays me. He asks me, "How much do you want for this?" I say, "Well, give me £50, give me £100, it's yours, take it with you." Because it doesn't work for me. I've got no value in it. He thinks, "Wow, jackpot, I won the lottery." Right? He puts the car back on his lorry and is now driving along. He's got his radio switched on. And on the radio there's a bit of news that says, well, scientists have just found out that the metal that has been used to build that particular car is poisonous. It releases a certain kind of chemical into the atmosphere, and if you breathe it, it becomes poisonous. And so from this point forward, it's against the law to trade in that metal. Guess what this driver is going to do now? He's going to park by the side of the road, right? Throw the car that he's just bought into along the road, not caring what's going to happen, because to take that car now to the scrapyard is going to cost him more in fuel than he's going to earn by selling that metal. If he was allowed to do that, he would just throw it out of the truck and drive away. So what's happened there? Again, he wanted the metal, and in seeing the value in that, in seeing that it's going to be to his liking, he put a value on that. But as he listened to the news story, he's now realized, well, that's not to my liking. I'm not going to earn the money that I thought I'm going to earn from it. And so the value has dropped to zero. So this is why I say, every time we think that the world works to my liking, we give it value. And if we realize, actually, no, the world doesn't work to my liking. What I like has got nothing to do with it. What I like, or whether I like it or not, is not part of that formula. It's the causes that give the result. Things are conditioned. As long as the causes are lined up, then you got the right formula and you get the result for that. That's all that happens. Whether I like it or not has got nothing to do with it. What happens then? All the sights I see, all the sounds I hear, all the tastes that I feel, all the textures, all the sensations that I feel, they all begin to diminish in value. This is why an arahant does not give any value to absolutely anything. To him or to her that is an arahant, absolutely everything in this world, including the Dhamma, is of zero value. Of course, he's going to preach the Dhamma. If it wasn't for Arahants that preach the Dhamma, the Tripitaka would be half the size today. Venerable Sariputta, the number of discourses that he'd given, thanks to him we understand some of the sutras that the Lord Buddha taught us, because the Lord Buddha often taught sutras in very concise form, and then Venerable Sariputta would expand them, would put detail into them, and then make it understandable in a way that you and I can understand today. A really good example is the Satchavibhanga Sutra. That was given by Venerable Sariputta, but the Satchavibhanga Sutra is a detailed version of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, which was given by the Lord Buddha. So of course an Arahant would preach the Dhamma, but he doesn't give value to the Dhamma. If someone comes along and says, "What kind of Dhamma do you talk about?" I don't believe in any of that thing. Who's that person that you venerate? The Buddha? Who cares about the Buddha? It's just another person with a shaved head. I don't care about him. That doesn't hurt an Arahant one bit. But to you and I, that might cause a little bit of grief, a little bit of pain. This is because we give value. This is because we are attached, and this is because we think that thing or that person is to my liking. And if we can rectify our view, rectify the way we take in the world, the way we see the world, in a way that, and completely understand that everything is nothing but condition. Remember, the Buddha said, my ministry, as in his Shasana, the ministry is going to last 5,000 years. Even to the Buddha Shasana, the Buddha gives an expiry date. Something so sublime as the Buddha Shasana, he gives an expiry date. Well, if the Buddha Shasana has an expiry date, everything has an expiry date. What we don't realize is that expiry date, we don't know when. We don't know what my expiry date is. Do you know what your expiry date is? No, nobody knows. That day could be today, that day could be tomorrow, it could be the next minute. I'm talking right now. What guarantee can I give that I'll end this sermon? I can give no guarantee. And yet if I spend the time that I have left trying to accumulate, trying to acquire, trying to build, all to satisfy other people's expectations, well, what have I done for myself? I live and I die having done nothing for myself. What kind of life is that? And I go back to that example which I used yesterday with that gentleman who came to see me. You have a dog at home. The dog eats, the dog sleeps, right? The dog drinks, the dog reproduces, and the dog just wanders around at home. He barks when he likes. That's all the dog does. But to do all of that, you're the one who provides for that dog. The dog doesn't have to work hard to get any of those things. When he wakes up in the morning, you give him food, you give him water, you take him out for a walk, you give him shelter, you wash him. The dog doesn't have to lift a finger. But yet you have to work hard. You have to not only feed yourself but also the dog. You have to not only find clothing for yourself, but you also have to do the same for the dog. You have to not only find shelter for yourself but also the dog. Now tell me, who's happier? The dog or yourself? And we say that the dog has been born in a hell and you are born in one of the blissful planes as a human being. Yet you suffer because of the dog. Are you not, back in the day, dogs used to be security guards, didn't they? For human beings. Well, guess who the security guard is today? Haven't the roles turned around completely? Today, people buy these expensive animals. Boxers and Dobermans, and I can't remember the names of dogs now, but back then I used to. But you have dogs that are really valuable, really expensive. You bring them home, you look after them, you raise them up, you feed them. You're looking after the dog. The dog isn't looking after you. The dog's in a hell. You're a human being. Tell me, where is the sense? Where is the logic in this? Aren't we at that level right now? If you're the one that's now looking after the dog and doing all of those things to the dog, then tell me, who's the dog? Who's the one who's slavering day in, day out Again, why? For responsibilities and duties to other people and other animals and other things. Where is happiness? Where is the happiness that we've been looking for in life? And yet, you ask people, what do you hope to achieve in life? Happiness. All I'm doing, the reason I do all of these things is to be happy. And yet they forget the most fundamental principle to being happy. That is to let go, to stop setting expectations, to stop tying yourself up to all of these things. They're all dynamites. Remember we talked some time ago. All of these things you're holding on to are dynamites because they all have an expiry date. They're all going to blow up one day. Your kids are going to blow up one day. Your husband, your wife, your job's going to blow up one day. Your house is going to blow up one day. Obviously not literally, but they're all going to come falling down one day. And then who's going to suffer? The person that's holding on to this dynamite. But this dynamite has a nice wrapper around it. It's got flowers and stars on this wrapper. It smells nice and it tastes like candy. So you think, I want more of these, please. Can I have some more? Not realizing you're holding on to dynamite. Isn't that but a fool? Only a fool would do that. This is why an arahant looks at me and go, you fool, why are you still clinging on to life? This is the question he asks me. Why are you clinging on to life? Why are you clinging on to the sights you're seeing, the sounds you're hearing? And yet if you were to speak to a lay person, you'd be asking, why are you clinging on to that house? Why are you clinging on to that person, that dog? Why are you clinging on to a job? So what we need to try and do then is to remember, as I explained again to the visitors that we had yesterday, I'm in a hospital. So we had a meditation and seal program at the monastery now. For those who are listening, there's a seal program and at the monastery every Wednesday and Saturday. So obviously there was one yesterday, and I forgot what I was going to say now. Yes, hospital. Thank you. I'm glad I have you here. I explained to them that this monastery is a hospital. This monastery is a hospital, and there are two kinds of people that come into this hospital. There are those that come as outpatients, and then there are those that come as inpatients. The outpatients come dressed in white, and we let them be in white clothes. We try and treat them by giving them some paracetamol, some painkillers, some brufen, right? We say, well, why don't you try this? Come back in a week. Come back in 2 weeks' time. Let's see how you progress. And then there are others who, although we say, well, have you tried paracetamol? And they go, I'm too late for paracetamol. I don't know when I'm going to die. I have no time to mess about. Stop fuffing about with me. I have no time for paracetamol or painkillers. Can you take me to the operation theatre right now? And what do we do with them? We put on the dress that is required for one to be taken into the operation theatres. And they're red in color. They're orange in color. And that's what I'm donned in right now. I'm in the operation theatre. I'm in the ICU. Because I don't know when my life's going to stop. When my heart's going to beat for the last time. But there are those people that come along and we say, are you sure? Because we've got some operation theatres that are free, vacant right now. We can take you in. And they go, no, it's okay. I've just come for a bit of paracetamol. And we say, are you sure? Because I can see you're bleeding. You're bleeding quite badly right now. Let's take you in and we'll get you healed up. And then you can go back home. No, I'm fine. Because I've got my parents to look after. I've got my kids to look after, my job. I've got my pet dog that I need to go back and feed. He's waiting for me to come home and feed him. So I've got to go. Well, you're bleeding. Yeah, that's okay. I've got to go feed my kids. And then what can we do? We can't take them into the operation theatre. So, but what we need to realize is, yes, this is a hospital. And therefore to fool ourselves thinking, well, I'm a good person, I am free of defilements, is nothing but a foolish thought. If you're in the operation theatre, it's because something's wrong with you. If you're in the hospital, it's because something's wrong with you. If you didn't have something wrong with you, you wouldn't have to come into the monastery. For anyone that hasn't got anything wrong with them, you don't need to come into the monastery. The monastery is a hospital. The monastery is a hospital for the diseases that are desire, aversion and delusion, raga, dvesha, moha. Come into the hospital and we'll treat you. But you have to accept that you have something wrong with you. You have to accept and you have to realize that yes, you are bleeding. You've cut yourself really bad. Your intestines are almost out of your body. We can see the cut in your tummy. Your lungs are splitting out. Your heart is almost ready to stop beating. All your juices from inside the body are flowing out. Your wounds are festering. We can see this. This is why we're asking you to come in. Let's get that operation done straight away. We have doctors who are ready to operate on you. But you've got to be willing to come into the hospital. You've got to be willing to be admitted. Because we don't treat someone who's not ready to be treated. So that was an open invitation. Not only to come and be resident in the hospital and be treated, but also to remind everyone that there's a SEAL program every Wednesday and Saturday. If anyone is about, or you have friends and family who are able to join, then please do. We started out with 50, but now we have about 100 taking part, which is absolutely wonderful. And throughout the day, we give them the shiksha pada, the precepts, and also the dutanga, the adherences, which help people observe the type of life that the likes of Venerable Moggallana and Mahakashyapa would have led back in the day. And you're able to observe them and to live, at least spend that day like an arahant. At least, try and see if your feet fit in their shoes. Not going to fit, but you can try. Like we did when we were kids. Try to walk in our father's shoes and our mother's shoes, right? That's what we used to do. So you can try and do that. And then we have meditation programs towards the afternoon. So it's a full day packed full of interesting and really insightful programs and events that will help everyone that wants to be treated. But you have to want to be treated. We don't go around asking people to come along, hey, we've got some free treatment, you want to come and take it? No, you have to want to be treated. The Buddha said, don't go after people that don't want the Dhamma. That's like a man chasing after a woman saying, oh, please, I didn't mean to upset you, please come back, please come back. Please don't leave me. He said, just as that is such a shameful thing to do, don't go after people giving them the Dhamma if they don't want it. If they want it, give it. So, hopefully that has been an interesting perspective on the world. What I wanted to reflect on today was really those experiences that we had over the past week, and how, yes, it is challenging to live in this world. There's no question about that. I've experienced it. Everyone here has experienced it. But remember that the reason that we are in this game is because we said we'd like to play. We said we'd like to play. We didn't ask for the rules of the game. The rules of the game were set long before we came in and started playing. We can't change the rules of the game. We can't change the direction of the wind. We can only set the sail the way we want to go. The wind will blow the way the wind wants to blow. But if you know where you want to get to, set the sail the way you want to. And the sail is attached to the boat. So that's your mind. You can decide what you want to do with your life. Don't be a victim of what your parents or your relations, your friends want you to become. Don't be a victim. You're free. You're a human being, for heaven's sake. You can make your own choices. Make your own decisions. Don't be tied up to duties and responsibilities that's going to keep you there forever. And by the way, I'm not saying don't fulfill duties and responsibilities, because I did all of that. And I'm still prepared to do that to the extent that I can. Even today, if my parents come and visit me, I tell them, if at any point you are unwell, then the Buddha has given me, the Lord Buddha has given me the opportunity and the freedom to go and treat my parents, to make sure that they're looked after. And I hope that day doesn't have to come, but if it does, then I'm more than ready to go and do that. But remember, you will spend a lifetime fulfilling responsibilities and duties, and yet when the day comes for you to say goodbye, no one can come and save you. At that point, it will just be the things you've done, the merits that you've acquired, the good things you've done and the bad things you've done. The karmas you will have committed will bring the vipaka. And whether you've committed lots of bad things in the hope of trying to save your kids or your family, doesn't count at that point. If you've done a bad thing, well, the results are going to be bad as well. You will have to suffer the consequences. No one else will be able to suffer the consequences on your behalf. It's an unfair world. It is an absolutely unfair world. The rules of the game are completely unfair, unjust. But guess what? We asked to play the game because we wanted to come in to the game, because we said, yes, I'd love to see sights, I'd love to hear sounds, I'd like to taste tastes, I'd love to smell things, I'd love to feel things. For as long as we keep doing that, we'll keep coming back and we'll have to be players in this game. So make a decision. You're free to make that choice. Do you still want to continue playing the game? If you don't, then it's time to make a choice in your life. It's time to make a decision. And if you want help making that decision, then absolutely come and speak to us. There are 30 monks right now in the monastery, and there are 15 anagarikas who are waiting to be ordained. All of these people aged between the age of 7 and in their 30s, 40s. They're all wanting to lead a life that is different to the life that they've been spending all this time, having realized that you can't find happiness in living the life that they have lived so far. That happiness does not come by trying to pursue happiness. Happiness arrives at you. Happiness comes to you when you stop chasing it. If you're chasing happiness, then you're just going behind it. But stop and it's going to come and hit you in the face. That is the nature of happiness. This is why I'm happy today, because I've decided to stop playing the game. When are you going to decide to stop playing the game? May the merits that we have all acquired in preaching the Dhamma today and in listening to the Dhamma today and making this opportunity available to all the Devas and Brahmas and all of those beings that we have come past in Sansara, may the merits that we have all acquired help us all to achieve the Nibbanic bliss that we are all so eager to achieve. May the merits help any beings that are born in the woeful plane to relieve themselves and redeem themselves from those places and be born in blissful planes, therefore have the opportunity to listen to the Dhamma, to absorb the Dhamma and to find the Nibbanic bliss. May all beings be freed from the fires of desire, the fire of aversion and the fire of delusion. May all beings attain Nibbana. May the Noble Triple Gem bless you all. Theruvan Saranai.